Hello friends, how do we move from one activity to another? The answer is intent. And how do we move from one fragment to another? Well, to get the answer of this question, is this particular video going to be very important. In this video I will be talking about navigation. So let me close all the tab and let me show you initially what I've got. This is where the navigation, a resource that been produced by Android Jetpack Compose, comes in picture. It's very important these days. So what we want is we want to move from one fragment to another, and for that reason we need to create a new resource of type navigation. So come to new and then come to Android resource file, and here is the resource type that is called navigation. Give a name and then click on the OK button. Once you do that, you get to see a folder by the name called navigation, and inside the navigation you will have the file that you just now created. So let me double click this particular file. So as you get to see over here, you already find two fragments over here, but when you will be creating, this entire space will be completely empty. Similarly, there will not be anything as host. Neither your component tree will be showing any fragments, because you did not create any fragment yet. You have just created a new resource of type navigation. Let me take you to the code segment. Your scenario at that point of time would be just like this. A navigation tag is there, and there is nothing like a start destination. This will not be there. Not even the fragment tag would be there. So this is how it would look, a completely empty but a navigation resource you have taken. So once you added this navigation resource, there will be change in your Gradle script, because by default for navigation the dependencies will not be there in Android. Once you take the navigation resource, the dependency will be added. In fact, there will be two dependencies that is going to be added. One is, let me take you to the build, and one more thing. As I was saying that you have to work on your fragment, so for that reason we would go for the build feature of data type, that is data binding. We would try to connect all our resources with the help of data binding. So make sure the build feature should be of type data binding rather than view binding. So once you go for navigation, you will find these two dependencies would be added by the system. It will prompt you to add these dependencies, not the last one. Last one will be added later on. So you are going to work on navigation. Navigation will work on fragment. So that means a fragment is very important in modern programming, and you also need an UI for navigation. So for that reason these two dependencies will be added by default as you take the navigation resource. Okay, now once you have done that, the question would be, how do you implement this navigation in your application? You need some area where this particular navigation should be shown, right? Because this is again a resource, so this resource needs to be displayed somewhere. So for that reason we will take the help of main activity. You rightly heard, you need to work on main activity, because by default we know that any Android application will have a default main activity as a startup activity. So for that reason we need to implement this particular navigation inside the main activity. Okay, so in step 1 you have just added a navigation resource. From the resource over here, resource type, you have changed this one to navigation. So that was the first step. Once you have the navigation with you, now you need to embed the navigation somewhere, and for that reason you will pick up main activity. So let me take you to the layout file of main activity. If I double click on this, here you would find something called NavHost. So let me search over here by the name called NavHostFragment. You will drag this, you will drop this over here. So NavHostFragment will allow you to embed your navigation resource. Okay, so NavHostFragment will allow you to embed your navigation resource. So once you allow the navigation resource to be embedded over here in the form of NavHost, hence it becomes a default host. So that means your main activity will be responsible to display the navigation, and this is very crucial. Apart from that, as you know, we are working on data binding, so the layout option or layout tag has to be there. That's by default. So even if you are not working on navigation, still you have to give the layout because you are working on data binding. Okay, so step number 2 is you have to implement NavHostFragment so that the navigation can be done within your main activity, and that is possible with the help of NavHostFragment. Now once you are applying NavHostFragment, then the dependency for fragment would be added in your system. This is the third dependency that gets added. So that means there would be total 3 dependencies that is coming in picture. The first is a navigation implementation, which has been provided by Jetpack Compose, and this navigation will have a navigation graph. For that you have the UI part, where actually the transition between one fragment to that of the other one would be taking place, and since you're going to work on fragment, for that reason the fragment dependency is also applied. Okay, so step 2 I believe is clear: implementation of NavHostFragment inside main activity so that you can embed the navigation within your app. Great. Once you have done this, immediately you will see the change over here. See, your host is navigation. The navigation will be implemented on top of main activity, and that's your host. Okay, so who is going to allow the navigation taking place? Your main activity. That's the reason it's called host. Fine. So step 2 is done. Now comes to step 3, and what step 3 is saying here is where you have to create fragment. So how do you create a fragment over here? Well, you have an option over here called new destination. As you click this, you get to see an option called create new destination. Select this and you select a fragment from here and click next. Give a name to the fragment, and then you will find the XML file will be appearing inside your navigation, and similarly the Kotlin file will appear inside your activity, inside your app. Over here you will find the first fragment will appear. Well, I've created a package called my fragment. This will not be there by default. You will see just beside main activity you will find home fragment, in case if you have given the name of the fragment as home fragment. Okay, so I have created a new package over here by right clicking over here, come to new, and then you come to the package and you give a package name, and I have given the package name as my fragment, and then I just drag the fragment and drop it inside this particular package. Eventually the package will have the following fragment. It's a good way of doing it. It would be more neat and clean. So once the fragment has been added over here, now what we would do? Well, this is the first fragment, so for that reason you will have an option over here, home. This click on this home icon, that becomes the first fragment to start with. Well, by default this home would be there automatically. In case if it is not there, then you can click on this home. So it brings us that this fragment is the startup fragment. So when you will work on the navigation, this would be the first fragment to get in. So once you've added this fragment automatically in the nav graph, well, I've given the name of the navigation as nav graph, you will find this particular fragment appearing. That's great, isn't it? So let me show you what is there inside this particular fragment. So for that reason, let's come to the layout file over here. Let's go to the fragment_home, and as I do that, again we are working on data binding, so layout has to be there, and I have implemented the constraint layout because I love to work on constraint layout. And over here I have gone for an edit text so that user can give an import, and I've also got a button so that user can click after giving the import. So it's just a basic way of doing it. Got it? So that is what the content of your fragment_home. And so this is what you are seeing. Similarly, I want to make a transition, so for that reason I need another fragment, right? And again the same thing, come over here, click the new destination and choose the new choose the blank fragment, give a name like what I have given over here as second fragment, and the second fragment will appear. So once you apply that second fragment in your navigation, immediately the layout file will appear inside your layout folder, and in your Android app you will find the name of the second fragment will appear. Well, again, I dragged it and dropped it inside the package. So let me show you first how the layout file of the second fragment looks like. Again, data binding is there. For that reason, layout is there, and over here I've gone for constraint layout. I have taken the text view as a first text view because I want to show you the data that is coming from the home fragment. So for that reason, I have taken this text view, and again I have got a button so that once I click this, I will get back to the home fragment. So that means I can do a transition from the home fragment to the second fragment, and again from second fragment I can get back to the home fragment. So this transition you need, right? And that is what called navigation action. So as you see over here, you will find a circle is there. As you drag it and if you drop it over here, there would be an action taking place, and this action is very important. That is called navigation action. So if I click on this, you will find over here an attribute. It shows that this is the name of the home fragment. That is great. And if I click on this, now it will show you that there is an action between home fragment to second fragment. That means I'm going from home to second fragment. That's the reason from and to is there. ID is given. This is ID. That means the ID of this particular action. So this is a nav action you are taking place, and that's the third step. So let's do a small recap. The first step was implementation of navigation resource inside the resource folder. The second step was how do you embed this particular fragment in your main activity with the help of NavHostFragment. And the third step is that to implement the fragment, and then you have to connect the fragment one with the other one with the help of nav action. And once you do that, each action will be given a proper unique name so that you can handle them via code. So the destination where you are going to land up is the second fragment. That's what has been clearly stated. In the same fashion, I can also come back from second fragment to the home activity or the home fragment. So for that reason, action is second fragment to the home fragment. ID is the same, second fragment to home fragment, and the destination is now home. So this is your nav action. Got it? So now once you have done that, you will be able to see these actions coming in picture right over here. So that shows that how you are connecting one fragment with that of the other one. And for that reason, now comes the code part. Please take care that I am not just implementing only navigation over here. At the same time, I'm also implementing data passing between home fragment to that of second fragment. So home fragment will accept the data given by the user. Well, let me run the app so that it will be more clear. The second home fragment is implementing this edit text. So if I type over here my name Swaroop Kumar, and then if I click on the move button, what happens? This import will give a transition to the second fragment. Not only that, it will also pass the data between the fragment. Alright, so before I click on the move button, so let me show you how the implementation is taking place, and that will bring us to the home fragment.kt file. So let's open over here. Well, I have removed all the boilerplate code that would provide the moment you come into the fragment. I just have got now on create view holder, and this is very important for me because this is a place where I have to take the input from the user. Since I'm going for data binding, for that reason I have implemented the form fragment home binding. I mean the name of the fragment will be transferred, will be converted into the following name, and this is my binding object. So I will go and I will connect the XML file, and then I will check whether the user has given the input or not. So set on click listener will be called on basis of binding, and this is the name of the button that is given at the XML level. So I will just check whether the user has given the input in the edit text or not, and if the input is there, then I will collect the data so that I can pass it when the transition between the home fragment with that of the second fragment will take place. So how will I create an environment so that I can do the transition? And for that reason, bundle will play a very important role. So bundle is working like a key value pair. This is my key. I've given a name, edit name, whatever name you feel like, whatever key you feel like you can give it, and where from it will collect the data. Binding home dot edit name, edit name, this is that edit text box name. It will collect the data and it will convert it into toString, and finally stored inside this particular bundle. And now what happens? I have to find the nav controller. I already said you the nav event was there, so with the help of nav event you are putting a transition that from this activity, I mean from this fragment to this fragment you are coming. So for that reason I'm going for find nav controller, and then what is the name of the nav action, that what I will put over here, and then I will pass this parameter called bundle that actually holds the data that user has given. And finally I will return the binding object. So once you pass it, your second activity need to receive that, right? So let's come to the second activity over here. Again, I have removed all the boilerplate code, and since we are using data binding, so fragment second binding, as you can see over here, fragment underscore second is there, that reference comes in picture. So now what I'm doing, again I'm connecting your XML file, and now I'm accepting the parameter that is coming from home fragment to this particular fragment. As we saw that it is sending data in the form of a key value pair, so this is my key, so this key I need to accept over here. So that's what I did over here. So this is the key name which I have given, and whatever input is there inside the key I stored inside this variable, and finally I'm going to display that. So here is my text view. So let me click on this button. As I do that, I move to the second fragment, and second fragment there is a text view, so the text view is printing the data as you can see right over here. And now if I click on the return, so it will bring me back to the home fragment, and for that reason again find NavController will come in picture, whereby I'm telling which particular nav action I will be using. So if you come over here, if you minimize this, you can see that there is a nav action over here. So this nav action will be allowing me that from second fragment I need to come to the home fragment, and home will become my destination, right? Great. So that's how the thing is going to work, and that's how the implementation is going to execute. So let me run the code once again. So this is my home fragment that you are seeing, and remember this home fragment has been embedded through the help of NavHostFragment that is there in my main activity. So let me show you one again. So this is my NavHostFragment is there, which allowing me to embed my navigation. So let me write my name over here once again. So Swaroop Kumar Shah, and now if I click on the move button, it will bring me to the second fragment. And similarly, if I want to get back to my home fragment again, I will simply click on the return, and that will bring me back to the home fragment. And that's how the transition between two fragments with the help of navigation, with the help of NavHost, and with the help of nav event is taking place. So that's how this concept of navigation is working over here, and it is one of the important concepts that will need fragment in picture. I believe this particular video will help you to understand how to implement this transition. So stay tuned, and very soon I'm going to come up with more such kind of videos. Thank you very much.